fam. Long time no see. I haven't filmed an actual video in a couple of weeks, but it is the end of April / beginning of May, so that means it's time for a wrap up. And this month I have not only just regular reading wrap up, but I also have the Magical Readathon Owls wrap up. And I did manage to read all 12 of my books. Woo! So I have a lot to get through in this video, so stick with me because it's going to be a long one. Yeah, so we have the 12 OWL books, 3 other books that I read afterwards, and then I also have two audiobooks for this month that I finished. So that is a grand total of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 books that I have to get to. So I'm going to cut this intro short and let's get into it. So the first book that I read this month was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I suck, I'm sorry. And this book was about, so she killed her husband, she shot him 5 times in the face, and hadn't spoken a word since then. And this follows the therapist that moves to her specific hospital or care center, whatever you want to call it, and it follows his story about him trying to help her. And does she talk? Does she not talk? What happens? I absolutely adored this book. This was an amazing thriller. The twist, you didn't see it coming until, maybe 20 pages before it happened. And it was phenomenal. This is an adult book. I don't think that I said, but this was the Charms book for Ageline. Just read an adult work. And I absolutely adored this. I gave this 5 stars. Definitely would recommend this. I have recommended this to many people in real life. I'm desperately trying to get my sister to read this, so Christina. So yeah, that was my first book, and it was definitely a great one to start out with. The next book was A Curse of Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, and this was for History of Magic, which was to read a retelling. This is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and it follows a girl. I've read so many books, I can't even remember. This follows a girl named Harper who has cerebral palsy, and Prince Ren, who was cursed to become a beast every season. So basically every season he has to take a girl to try and get them to fall in love with him and break the curse. And when he ran out of suitors in his realm, he started taking people from our realm. So Harper's from Washington, D.C., and Prince Ren's faithful sidekick goes to D.C. and takes women, and this time Harper happened to get in the way saving someone. Because she is so special, she just might be the one that breaks the curse. I believe I gave this one a 4, like a mid to high 4. I adored it. It was so well written, just such a great story. I love Beauty and the Beast, so this was perfect for me. It's one of those books where even when not a lot is going on, it still holds power over you, which is just amazing. Next is Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. I also really enjoyed this book. This was for herbology, which was read a book with a plant on the cover, and this has some thorns. So basically, this book follows, I forget all of their names, oh my gosh. So this book follows Rasmira, and in their culture, their town, they train for many years in a given profession, and then once they come of age, they do a trial. And Rasmira is the daughter of the chief. She's set to become the next leader. And something happens during her trial that gets her exiled into these dangerous woods. And they give you a task that you have to complete if you want to come back into the village and be welcomed back. And they are pretty much ridiculous tasks, and hers is to kill a god. There's a god that torments all of the villages around this area, and her task is to kill him. And she meets up with two other boys that have been exiled as well, and is they're teaming up enough to kill a god, basically. So I also really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars. Probably 4.5 stars, I would say, even though you can't do half stars on Goodreads, but meh. So I very much enjoyed this one as well. This one came in my first ever unplugged book box that I got, and was definitely a great choice. Next I have Wires and Nerves by Marissa Meyer. This is a graphic novel in the Lunar Chronicles world. Is that the correct word? Anyways, so this follows Aiko, who is an android, and it's her job to rid the world of these wolf hybrids that are from Luna, and they're causing issues on Earth and straining the alliance between Luna and Earth, and it's her job to get rid of them. And as you go through, you meet up with everyone else that is on the Rampion crew, and it's just a fun delve back into that world of the Lunar Chronicles. So I believe I gave this one a 3.5. It was super fun. The art style was awesome. I'll definitely grab the next installment of this. And overall, I would definitely recommend it if you liked the Lunar Chronicles. It was a quick, easy read, super fun. I believe that this was for Divination, so a book that is set in the future. The next book is the first installment in the Lumberjanes comics, Beware the Kitten Holy. This book is just super fun, super great art style. The story is pretty coherent. This was for Arithmancy, more than one author, which there are 4: Stevenson, Ellis, Waters, and Allen. I believe I gave this one a 3. It was a middling book. I would definitely read on in it. Basically, there is a camp, and one cabin is a group of friends here, and they go on adventures together, kind of stumble onto strange happenings in the camp, I guess you can say. I don't want to give too much away because it is pretty short. Next, I have another Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is As Old as Time, A Twisted Tale, blah, 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 A Twisted Tale by Liz Braswell, and this is for Transfiguration, which was a red cover or sprayed edges, which I don't have sprayed edge books. So this, like I said, this is also a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I really enjoyed this one as well. This one stuck more to the Disney retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and the hook for this one is, what if Belle's mother was the enchantress that put the curse on the Beast? And so the perspective flips back and forth for about half of the book between Belle and her mother, but her mother's part is in the past. And so we see what kind of happened to lead up to her having Belle, and then also cursing the prince to become a beast, and then what happens to her after that. And it follows the movie up to a point, and then it veers off, and it is a very dark retelling, especially under the Disney, for it being under the Disney brand. It's very dark. I definitely gave this one a 4. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked how dark it was and how mysterious. There is definitely a mystery. You would not know how this was going to end just by watching the Disney movie. It's completely different after a certain point. So I would highly recommend these. This one especially, since it's the only one I've ever read. Next, I have Agatha Christie, Murder of the Orient Express. And this was for... Wait. Was this for History of Magic? Which is... I'm getting so confused. Okay, so disclaimer here. A Curse of the Dark and Lonely was for Ancient Ruins, and Murder on the Orient Express is for History of Magic, a book written 10 or more years ago. So this is one of the Hercule Poirot novels that she wrote. There's a whole mess of them, and this was basically about a murder on the Orient Express. A man is murdered in his compartment, and there is just a whole mess of contradicting clues. It seems like everyone is either lying or telling the truth, and it's up to Hercule to work this out. And since he is an amazing detective, he does, and you'd be surprised at who the murderer is. I was really happy with this. I gave it a 3.5, I believe. Super fast read, not too dense, not too bogged down, but definitely gives you enough meat to go along with. And I would definitely read more of these books as well. I have seen the movie, so I knew what was coming, and the movie sticks incredibly close to the book, and that hardly ever happens, so that was really cool. Next, I have Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. If the tripod jiggles or the camera jiggles or anything like that, the girls are watching a bunny rabbit outside. Fair warning. So, Number the Stars by Lois Lowry, and this is for astronomy, a book with the word star in the title. This book was one of my favorites when I was in 3rd and 4th grade. This is about a girl named Anne-Marie in Denmark during the Nazi occupation. And she has a best friend who is Jewish. It's about this young girl helping her family to save her best friend. It's a beautiful story. Definitely give this 4 stars. Super, super quick read. Only a couple hours to read this, and it's super quick. And I love it. I would recommend this. Next, we have Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. So this is the second book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. This was for Potions, which is the next ingredient or a sequel. I love this book as well. I gave it 4 stars. This is, like I said, the second book, so this follows Audrey Rose and Thomas as they go abroad to Romania for a I keep wanting to say mortuary school, and that is 1000% not what it is. It's forensic science. And they end up there in Dracula's castle, or Vlad the Impaler, and while they're on their way, a murder occurs that seems a little suspect that it might be vampires are back again. There are a few mysterious deaths, some of them are drained of blood, and it ultimately falls on Audrey Rose's and Thomas's shoulders to figure this out. And in the end, it gets pretty dangerous for them, and we find out something about Thomas that he didn't want anyone to know. But Audrey Rose and Thomas's romance grows through this book as well. It's a very slow burning romance, which I tend to enjoy, and then there's, you know, small payoffs at the end and along the way. I gave this one 4 stars. I am definitely going to be picking up the second one, and I have already ordered my final signed copy plus some extra goodies too. So I'm excited about that. Next we have The Near Witch by B.E. Schwab. This was for Care of Magical Creatures, which was to have a land animal on the cover, and since birds land, I thought that this one would be good, and I really wanted to read this one. The cover of this is just so beautiful, and the story was amazing as well. Definitely gave this one 4.5. This is about a girl named Lexi who one night after telling her sister the story of the Near Witch, which is a ghost story in their town, the town of Near, and after she is telling this story to her sister one night, she sees a boy out on the moor and he disappears, and then the next day a child has gone missing, and over the next few days more and more children go missing, always at night. There's no clues, and the town starts thinking that this boy, this outsider, is the reason behind this. But Lexi has met him, his name is Cole, and she knows that it's not him, and that it could only be one person. And so it's up to them to right some wrongs that have been done in the past. This was an amazing book. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, it had a good folklore background, which I love. And then it had, you know, the little romance in there. So, yes, I really enjoyed this book, and I would definitely recommend this. I would definitely read it again as well and see what I missed out on, maybe. Next, I have Nancy Drew, The Ringmaster's Secret, and this was the book for Defense Against the Dark Arts, which was a book that starts with R for Reducto, I believe. And this was just a good old Nancy Drew book. She starts out the book learning how to trick ride, and then a circus comes to town. She gets a bracelet from her aunt in New York that has a mystery attached to it, and it just all centers around Nancy. And, you know, some things happen to her. She almost gets hurt a few times, and she does it all with flair and lots of costume changes, but ultimately in the end she figures it all out. I gave this one a 3. This is a later book too in the series, and from what I remember, the ones nearer to the beginning were better. But yeah, it's very, it's a classic. I still loved it. Not much to say about it other than that. And now we're come to the last book that I read for the Magical Readathon. And this is Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills. And this was for Muggle Studies to read it contemporary. This is about a girl named Claudia who accidentally overhears a breakup between the cutest couple at their all-girls high school. And that gets her into some trouble with Iris, who they get paired together for a paper. Obviously they don't do well together, and they are then thrown into extra credit realm where they have to either perform in or help with the play that the two high schools are doing together. So the boys' high school and the girls' high school, and they're doing a Midsummer Night's Dream. I can say things. And Claudia meets Gideon, the prince of his school, for lack of a better word. He is charismatic and cute and a very caring person, and they start a relationship, not like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, but a friend relationship that progresses towards the end of the book. And also her relationship with Iris progresses through the book as well. I thought it was a good book. I read it in one sitting. Gave it a 3, but that's more like a 3.5. Again, Goodreads, you need to have half points or half stars, please. It's more accurate that way. And it's just a lot of ups and downs in a girl's senior year that didn't go as planned. A lot about her relationship with her best friend who goes to a different school, and she's a geek, she's a nerd, she plays, high fantasy computer games with her brother, sister, friend, and she gets her new friends involved in this computer game as well. And it's just, it was a cute book. So if you want something that's easy to read, doesn't have too much drama in it, this is the book for you. On to my non-readathon books that I read this month. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I did give a synopsis of this in my last month's wrap-up because I started it the end of March and then finished it mid-April. This is about Laszlo Strange. He was a foundling and was raised by monks until he got the opportunity to become a librarian, where he spent his time learning about the city of Weep, which is a long-lost city in the middle of the desert that no outsider has ever been to. And one day, the real name of the city was mysteriously wiped from everyone's minds in the entire world. No one can remember the name. And he is obsessed with this city. And after many years of researching, and he teaches himself the language and all this, he gets the opportunity to go there, and he goes there as part of a team. He himself is not on the team, but he goes along with this team that are trying to solve Weep's problem. And it's not quite what they're expecting. And then alternately, it's also spoken through the perspective of Godspawn, and she is the Muse of Nightmares, and her gift is to go into the sleeping minds of the people of Wheat and scare the living daylights out of them so they don't come looking for the god spawn. And yeah, it turns out that Laszlo Strange might not be there by accident and might not be all that we think he is. I adored this book. This was definitely a 4 for me. And I can't wait to get my hands on the Muse of Nightmares, which is the second in the duology. But I have many other books to get through before I can splurge and buy that one for myself. So, definitely one to be reading. And next I have A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is a book about Kel, the Red Traveler, and there are 4 Londons. His London is Red London, and his world has magic in it. And he is one of the very few people that can travel back and forth between these Londons. There's gray, white, red, and black London. And black London basically had a magical plague that wiped it out and no one goes there anymore. And he is a smuggler. He smuggles things back and forth between the worlds, which is forbidden, and it gets him into trouble. And he brings something to his world that he shouldn't have, and he has to fix it. And as he is in the process of fixing his blunder, he meets a pickpocket named Lila Bard, who teams up with him, and even though she has a sharp tongue and isn't all that trusting or trustworthy to start out with, they form a friendship, and maybe they're the only ones that can fix this blunder. Definitely a 4 for me as well. This was amazing. I liked that even though this is part of a trilogy, the book was contained within itself, so it wrapped itself up at the end. It wasn't left on a cliffhanger, and if you didn't know it was part of a trilogy, you could just read it and walk away happy, which is not something that you get all the time from, you know, a series or a duology or trilogy, something like that. So I very much enjoyed this. This is going to be such a long video. I hope I'm doing okay because there's so many books to talk about. The last book, the last physical book that I have today is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. And I actually have DNF'd this one. I am about 3/4 of the way through and I do not wish to continue. This is about Alice. Alice's grandmother wrote a book of fairy tales that are very odd. She herself has never read them. Her and her mother are constantly on the move throughout her growing up life. There's always bad luck following them, and she dreams of meeting her grandmother and reading her grandmother's book, but it is extremely hard to find a copy of this book. And then when her mother is kidnapped by some characters from her grandmother's book, she goes in search of someone who can help her figure out what's going on. And she ends up in this world that her grandmother wrote about. And it just reads very young to me. There are pacing issues all over the place. It's basically just her getting to one place. That's a whole frickin' story. I think if there was more of the fairy tales that are supposed to be in her grandmother's book, I think if there was more of that in here, if they got to the point quicker, I would have been happy. But it also reads very young. It reminds me of Percy Jackson and Inkheart, and I'm just not, it's not what I wanted it to be, and it's not what the synopsis made it out to be. And I know there's a couple other people that I know of that have been pretty disappointed with this book as well. So I'm, for now, DNFing that book, which is a shame because that cover is just so beautiful. We're on to audiobooks. The first one that I finished was The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. I gave that one a very high 3. It's about this girl, Elizabeth, who is adopted into the Frankenstein family, and she is a companion for Victor, who is the oldest boy. And he's a little odd, and she helps him to assimilate and not go off on these rages that he gets. But in the process of growing up this way, she has really lost herself, and she doesn't know who she is without Victor. And when he goes away to college and stops contacting them, she needs to find him. And so she goes, and what she finds disturbs her. And she tries, like she always has done, she tries to protect him. But maybe that's not the best idea this time. It was a great retelling of the Frankenstein story. It's all from her perspective, and just, it's really one of those stories that shows like who really is the monster. So I really enjoyed that one. And the last book that I have to talk about, finally, I feel like I've been talking for like 5 hours, is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This audiobook was like 50 hours long. It took me a long time to get through it. I gave it a 3.5. I enjoyed it, and I didn't enjoy it. There's parts that I really, really liked, and it really made you think about yourself and others, and just, I go on a whole rant of this in my last vlog. So if you really want an in-depth rant about what I think, go watch that. I'll link it up above. But it's definitely an interesting story. It follows Scarlett O'Hara through her time as a young woman, and it just at the start of the Civil War, and goes all the way through to the aftermath and beyond, where she has recuperated and refound her, and and goes all the way through past the war, where she finally has rebuilt herself into what she always thought that she wanted to be. And it's hard to read about a character who has no redeeming qualities. She is very selfish and money oriented, and she's always making the wrong decision, always blowing off her conscience and the teachings that her mother instilled in her. And it's not until the very, very end that she realizes what she's done and what really meant the most to her, and it wasn't money. There's a lot. It's a heavy, heavy book. And, you know, it has pacing issues where some parts were super interesting and there was stuff happening and it was going fast, and other times it was just da 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 da. We just plot along. I don't know where I'm going with this. I've been talking for way too long, so you can just deal with whatever I've just put out there about Gone with the Wind. That book is so big and it's such a classic that I just can't even. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I enjoyed greatly being involved in this readathon. I read so many books this month. So the doggies and I hope you have a good day, and we'll see you later. Bye.